You're sitting at your kitchen table on a Sunday night looking at your phone. Your account just hit a balance that surprised you, in a good way. The recent raise is real. The lifestyle feels comfortable. You have a decent car, a decent apartment, decent clothes, decent everything. From the outside, you look like someone who's doing fine. From the inside, you feel like someone who's doing fine. The thought even crosses your mind, briefly, that you're finally past the financial anxiety that used to follow you around. You scroll to a different app, watch a video about retirement planning, and skip past it because that's a problem for later. You'll figure it out when you're closer to 50. You have time. That moment, that exact moment, is when the trajectory locks in. Not the obvious financial mistakes, not the credit card maxed out, the quiet ones, the ones that feel like nothing. The decisions that look fine in isolation and produce a completely different person 10 years from now. Most people who go broke don't go broke from a single dramatic event. They go broke through a decade of small signals that nobody warned them about while they were happening. Today I'm going to walk you through 11 of those signals. None of them mean anything in isolation. All of them, combined, predict where you'll be in 10 years with uncomfortable accuracy. Quick disclaimer before we start. None of this is financial advice. This is education about patterns. Use it as a map, not a prescription. Let's get into it. One thing before we start. Don't just watch this as a list. Keep a mental score. Every time a signal sounds like you, count 1 point. 0 to 2 signals means you're probably dealing with normal financial friction. 3 to 5 means your system needs attention. 6 or more means your future self is probably already paying for patterns your present self has normalized. The number is not there to shame you. It's there to make the invisible visible. Signal 1. You can't name your savings rate. If I asked you right now, in this moment, what percentage of your take-home pay flows into savings or investment accounts each month, you'd have to do mental math to figure it out. Or you'd guess. Or you'd say something vague like, I think it's around 10%. The not knowing is the signal. People who end up financially stable in 10 years can answer this question instantly. They know the exact percentage because they engineered it. People who end up financially fragile have a feeling about their savings rate, but no specific number, because the savings just happens to be whatever's left after spending. According to Vanguard's How America Saves report, the average employee 401k contribution rate hovers around 7.7% of salary. Combined with employer matches, the average total savings rate reaches roughly 14.2%. But that average obscures a brutal reality. The bottom half of contributors are well below those numbers. Millions of workers are saving 0 or near 0 each month while telling themselves they're saving. The math punishes them silently. 5% of $75,000 a year invested at 8% for 30 years compounds to roughly $460,000. 15% invested over the same window compounds to roughly $1.4 million. The same income, the same time period, the same investment returns, 3 times the outcome. The difference between the two outcomes is a single number you either know or don't know. If you don't know, the trajectory has already started. Signal 2. Your savings rate doesn't change when your income changes. You got a raise last year. You got another one the year before that. Maybe a promotion. Maybe a side income that brought in an extra $8,000. The money came in. Some of it, none of it, ended up in your savings or investment accounts. The savings rate stayed essentially flat while your spending scaled up to match the new income. This is the mechanic behind a phenomenon that catches almost everyone who isn't paying attention. Lifestyle inflation. The income rises, the lifestyle rises in parallel, and the saving rate as a percentage stays exactly where it was. According to Goldman Sachs research, 41% of Americans earning between $300,000 and $500,000 annually report living paycheck to paycheck. 40% of those earning over $500,000 say the same. These are people who absorbed every dollar of income growth into expanded consumption. They earn more than 99% of Americans. They feel as financially stretched as someone earning $50,000 because their expenses moved in perfect step with their income. The signal that predicts which side of this you'll land on isn't your income. It's whether the percentage of your income flowing to wealth-building accounts increases when your paycheck grows. If your raises consume themselves into nicer restaurants, a slightly upgraded apartment, and a newer car, the trajectory is set. The next raise will do the same thing. The one after that will too. 10 years from now, your income will be substantially higher, and your financial position will be roughly identical to today. The treadmill speeds up. The position stays the same. The easiest way to break this is not to wait until you feel disciplined. It's to assign the raise before the raise becomes normal. If your income rises by $500 a month, decide in advance that $200 or $300 of it automatically moves toward debt, savings, or investments before your lifestyle has time to absorb it. Because once the higher income becomes your new normal, reducing it later feels like a sacrifice. Capturing it early feels like nothing. Signal 3. You can't cover a $1,000 emergency without going into debt. According to Bankrate's 2026 Annual Emergency Savings Report, 59% of Americans cannot cover a $1,000 emergency from savings. 24% have zero emergency savings at all. 33% have more credit card debt than emergency savings. These aren't fringe numbers. These describe the majority of the country. The signal isn't moral failure. The signal is structural fragility. Every emergency forces a return to credit. Every credit balance creates ongoing interest payments at 21 to 25% APR per Federal Reserve data through Q1 2026. Every interest payment reduces the cash flow available for the next emergency, which means the next emergency forces even more credit reliance. The cycle isn't linear, it compounds. The household that starts at zero emergency savings and $1,000 in credit card debt at age 30 often arrives at age 40 with no emergency savings and $12,000 to $15,000 in credit card debt at 22% interest, paying roughly $2,800 per year in interest alone. That $2,800 could have been the start of an emergency fund. It went to interest payments instead. The fragility entrenches itself. The signal predicts the trajectory with eerie accuracy. People who can cover a $1,000 emergency from savings at 30 almost always can cover larger emergencies at 40. People who can't at 30 almost always can't at 40, and often the gap has widened rather than closed. Signal 4. You don't know your real monthly expenses. Not a guess, the actual number. If I asked you right now, what did you spend last month? You'd have to open your banking app to find out. Most people answer this question with a number that's $200 to $400 lower than the real total. The gap between perception and reality is the signal. People who reach financial stability know what they spend. They have a number that's accurate within $50 at any given moment. They don't need to check. The number is part of their mental landscape, the way their height and their address are part of their mental landscape. People who don't know what they spend operate on an inflated number. They think they have flexibility they don't have. They make decisions based on the inflated number, run out of money before the month ends, and then can't explain where it went. The cycle repeats every single month for years. Knowing the number isn't sophistication, it's just paying attention. The unwillingness to look is itself the signal that predicts the next decade. Because if you can't look at the number now, you almost certainly won't look at it next year either. And by year 10, the avoidance will have produced an outcome you'll wonder how you arrived at. Signal 5. You make car decisions based on monthly payments instead of total cost. The dealer asks what monthly payment you're comfortable with. You give a number. The financing gets stretched, the term gets extended, the down payment gets minimized, all to engineer that monthly number. You drive off feeling fine because the payment fits your budget. According to Experian's Q4 2025 State of the Automotive Finance Market Report, the average new vehicle monthly payment hit $767. Over 20% of new car buyers committed to monthly payments exceeding $1,000. Total U.S. auto loan debt has crossed $1.66 trillion. The signal isn't the car itself. The signal is the framework you use to evaluate the car. Monthly payment thinking is the financial equivalent of looking at the floor while walking off a cliff. Each month feels fine, the total cost is invisible. $767 times 68.9 months, the average loan term, equals $52,867 in payments for a car that will be worth roughly $16,000 at loan end. The same $767 a month invested at 8% average annual return for 25 years compounds to approximately $728,000. $727,000 of foregone wealth hidden inside a monthly number that felt manageable. People who reach financial stability run the total. People who don't never run it. The signal predicts the decade with brutal accuracy. Let me pause for a moment because the pattern across the first 5 signals is starting to reveal itself. Every signal involves a number you're choosing not to know. The savings rate you can't quote. The savings rate that doesn't change. The emergency capacity you've never measured. The monthly spending you don't track. The car cost you didn't total. Financial fragility is, more than anything else, a relationship with not knowing. The not knowing is comfortable in the short term and catastrophic over a decade. The people who reach financial stability share one underlying trait. They look at the numbers. They're not braver, smarter, or more disciplined than anyone else. They just look. The looking is the entire foundation. And this is where the second half of the list gets more dangerous. The first 5 signals are mostly numbers you're choosing not to know. The next 6 are systems you've allowed to run without supervision. And systems are more dangerous than one-time mistakes because once they run quietly in the background, they start shaping your life without asking for permission. Signal 6. You have at least 3 subscriptions you don't remember signing up for. Open your bank statement right now and scroll through the recurring charges. There's a streaming service you forgot about, a free trial that converted 6 months ago, a meal kit you used once, a storage app for files you don't access, an audio service overlapping with another audio service, a premium app version when the free version would have worked. According to research from C+R Research, updated for 2026, the average American spends roughly $219 a month on subscriptions across about 8 active services. The average American thinks they spend roughly $86. The perception gap is $133 a month or $1,600 a year in services people genuinely don't remember paying for. $1,600 a year invested at 8% over 25 years compounds to roughly $117,000. The forgotten subscriptions aren't the meat of why people go broke. They're a leading indicator of the broader pattern. If you can't track the things automatically draining your account, you almost certainly can't track the things draining it actively. The subscription signal predicts a financial attention pattern that scales across every other category of spending in your life. Signal 7. You're carrying credit card debt that grows or stays flat instead of shrinking. According to LendingTree data through Q1 2026, the average credit card APR across all cards is 21%. The average APR on cards accruing interest is 21.52%. The average APR on new credit card offers is 23.75%. Per Bankrate's 2026 credit card debt report, 47% of credit card holders carry a balance month to month. 61% of those carrying balances have been in debt for at least a year, up from 53% in late 2024. Long-term credit card debt is becoming the norm. Total U.S. credit card debt crossed $1.3 trillion in early 2026, per Federal Reserve data. The signal isn't having credit card debt. Almost everyone does at some point. The signal is which direction the balance is moving. If your balance is shrinking month over month, you're winning, slowly. If it's flat, the interest is consuming everything you put toward it and your real progress is 0. If it's growing, the math is moving against you with mathematical certainty. $6,500 at 22.4% compounds against you at roughly $1,500 in annual interest. That's interest alone, before any principal gets paid. The minimum payment barely covers the interest. The principal sits there indefinitely. 10 years of carrying a $6,000 credit card balance cost you roughly $15,000 in interest payments. The signal predicts the trajectory because the math of compound interest doesn't care about your intentions. It only responds to the actual numbers. A balance growing at age 30 becomes a balance much larger at age 40, almost without exception. Here's the test most people avoid. Compare your credit card balance today to the balance 90 days ago. Not the payments you made, not the amount you intended to pay, the actual balance. If the number is not lower, your debt plan is not working yet. The first goal is not perfection. The first goal is to make the line move down for 3 months in a row, even if the movement is small. Shrinking is control. Flat is warning. Growing is an emergency. Signal 8. You're investing zero or near zero each month. According to the National Institute on Retirement Security's February 2026 report, the median amount saved for retirement among American workers ages 21 to 64, including those with zero savings, is $955. Read that again. Median. Across all working-age Americans, $955. Among workers who have at least some retirement savings, the median is $40,000. 28% of Americans have nothing saved for retirement at all. The signal here isn't being behind on retirement. Roughly 2/3 of Americans are. The signal is whether the contribution exists at all. People who reach retirement with adequate savings almost universally were contributing something every month for decades, even if that something was small. People who reach retirement with nothing almost universally weren't. The transition between the two outcomes happens in the small, consistent contributions you either make or don't. $200 a month invested at 8% from age 30 to 65 compounds to approximately $460,000. $500 a month over the same window compounds to approximately $1.15 million. $0 a month over the same window compounds to zero, regardless of your good intentions or your future plans to catch up. Compound returns require time. The time can't be added back. Every month of zero contribution is a month that will not be available to compound again. The signal predicts the future because the math of compound interest doesn't allow it to predict anything else. Up to this point, we've mostly talked about defense, spending leaks, debt, emergency savings, retirement contributions. But money is not only about defense. At some point, the question becomes whether your income path is growing fast enough to support the life you're trying to build. Because you can cut waste, cancel subscriptions, and optimize expenses, but if your income stays frozen for a decade, the ceiling stays low. Signal 9. You make career decisions based primarily on comfort instead of growth. You've been at the same job for 6 years. The pay hasn't moved meaningfully, the role hasn't changed, the skills you're using today are essentially the skills you had 3 years ago. You've stayed because the work is fine, the people are okay, and switching feels scary. The signal isn't loyalty. The signal is stagnation. Income is the largest variable in long-term wealth building. According to Bureau of Labor Statistics data, peak earning years for most professionals fall between ages 45 and 54. The income trajectory you're on at 30 largely determines where you peak in your 50s. People who reach financial security tend to make at least 1 or 2 strategic career moves between ages 28 and 38 that meaningfully accelerate their income trajectory. People who don't often stay stuck on the trajectory they started on. The income growth of staying in the same role at the same company averages around 2 to 4% annually. The income growth of strategic job changes averages around 10 to 15% per move. Over 10 years, the difference between these two patterns produces income gaps of 40 to 70%. Same intelligence, same work ethic, same starting point, different trajectory. The signal predicts the future because income is the raw material every other financial outcome gets built from. The person who never moves rarely catches up. The person who moves strategically rarely falls behind. This does not mean quitting impulsively or chasing every opportunity that looks exciting for 5 minutes. Strategic growth usually looks boring from the outside. Learning one valuable skill, taking one serious interview, negotiating one offer, moving one level closer to work that pays for judgment instead of only time. The signal is not whether you are uncomfortable today. The signal is whether your future earning power is expanding at all. Signal 10. You spend on visible items before you fund invisible ones. The new phone, the upgraded car, the better clothes, the nicer apartment, the more elaborate vacation. The visible categories get funded first. The invisible categories, retirement contributions, HSA contributions, taxable brokerage investments, get whatever's left, which is usually nothing. The order of funding is the signal. People who reach financial stability fund the invisible categories first. The money flows to retirement and investment accounts automatically, before they see it, before lifestyle has a chance to consume it. What remains is what's available for visible spending. The lifestyle adapts to the smaller number. People who don't reach financial stability fund the visible categories first. They wait to see what's left at the end of the month and intend to save that. The end-of-month number is almost always zero because spending naturally expands to consume available money. The intention to save never becomes the act of saving. The order matters more than the amounts. $500 going to investments automatically on payday compounds across decades. $500 in good intentions left for the end of the month never compounds because it never actually moves. The signal predicts the decade because the order doesn't change unless you deliberately change it. Most people don't. Signal 11. You have no specific financial number you're working toward. If I asked you, what's your retirement number? You'd say something vague. A lot. Some amount. Enough to be comfortable. You couldn't quote a specific dollar figure that represents financial independence for your life. You haven't done the math. You haven't sat down and worked out what your annual expenses are, multiplied them by 25 for a 4% withdrawal rate, and arrived at a target. You don't know what you're aiming at. The signal here is the absence of a number. According to the Clever Real Estate 2026 Retirement Statistics Survey, American retirees in 2026 think their peers need an average of $823,800 in savings and investments to retire comfortably, up from $580,000 the prior year. Yet most working Americans have never run their own number. They're saving toward an undefined finish line. People who reach financial independence almost universally know their number. They've calculated it, they review it, they adjust it as their expenses change. The number is real to them. The number being real changes behavior. The absence of a number guarantees that behavior follows whatever feels comfortable in the moment, which is rarely the behavior that produces the result you'd want if you had ever sat down and named what the result was supposed to be. The signal predicts the decade because directionless behavior produces directionless outcomes. Money goes where the intention goes. Without a target, the intention diffuses across small consumption decisions that quietly add up to no progress at all. Now add up your score. If you recognized 1 or 2 signals, this is maintenance. You probably have a few leaks to clean up, but the foundation is not broken. If you recognized 3 to 5, this is a warning light. Your financial life may still look normal from the outside, but the system underneath needs attention. If you recognized 6 or more, the issue is no longer one bad habit. It is a financial operating system that is producing the same result every month. And that matters because systems do not fix themselves just because you understand them once. Let me step back and tell you something that connects all 11 of these signals. They're not character flaws. They're not signs that you're bad with money. They're signs of a specific kind of relationship with financial reality. The relationship is avoidance. Not in the dramatic sense, in the quiet sense. The numbers feel uncomfortable, so they get ignored. The accounts feel stressful, so they don't get checked. The retirement question feels distant, so it stays distant. The car payment feels manageable, so the total doesn't get calculated. Every signal we walked through is a different expression of the same underlying pattern. The pattern is the gap between knowing and not knowing, with consistent default toward not knowing. This is why most people who go broke over a decade didn't go broke through a single dramatic mistake. They went broke through 1,000 small instances of choosing not to look. The car decision they didn't fully analyze. The subscription they meant to cancel. The savings rate they meant to increase. The retirement contribution they meant to set up. The credit card balance they meant to pay down. Each individual instance was small. Each individual instance felt insignificant. Each individual instance was reversible if anyone had paid attention. The aggregate of a decade of these instances becomes a financial position that feels impossible to climb out of. But that wasn't created by anything impossible. It was created by 10,000 small acts of not looking. The good news inside this brutal pattern is that it cuts the other way too. The decade ahead isn't determined by where you are right now. It's determined by what relationship you build with your own financial reality starting today. People who go from broke to stable inside a decade almost always did the same thing. They started looking. They tracked the numbers. They calculated the spending. They named the savings rate. They ran the totals on the cars. They listed the subscriptions. They opened the retirement account. They moved jobs strategically. They funded the invisible categories first. They named a number to aim at. They turned the avoidance into attention. The attention turned into structure. The structure turned into compound returns. The compound returns turned into the financial position they wanted. If you watched this and recognized yourself in 3 or 4 or 7 or all 11 of these signals, the trajectory is real, but it's not locked. The relationship with not knowing can change at any moment. The change usually starts with one focused afternoon of getting clear on your real numbers and then a few weeks of building structure around what you find. I built a digital product called the Financial Reset System for that specific transition. It walks you through getting clear on your real numbers, finding where your money is leaking, sequencing your priorities, and building a 30-day plan that creates the foundation everything else depends on. Every number auto-calculates as you fill it in. The PDF guide walks you through each step. The 30-day plan gives you weekly checkpoints. The link is in the description and in my profile if you want to take a look. The signals predict the future for people who keep avoiding the numbers. For people who finally look, the future opens up in ways that feel unfamiliar at first and then become the new baseline. Here's the closing thought worth carrying with you. 10 years is a long time. Long enough for compound returns to either save you or sink you. Long enough for small habits to become the difference between options and obligations. Long enough for the person reading this video today to either be someone with breathing room or someone who's still wondering what happened to a decade of effort. The signals are the early warning system. They don't appear in dramatic moments. They appear in the small Sunday night scrolls and the casual decisions and the questions you didn't quite want to answer. Catching them now is the entire game. Ignoring them is also a choice, just a choice you make by default rather than by decision. The next 10 years are already happening. The signals are already operating. The compound math is already running. The only variable that's still open is whether you start to engage with any of it before the trajectory locks in completely. The person you'll be at 40 is being built by the person you are at 30, in small choices that don't feel important while you're making them. You already know which signals belong to you. The next 30 days are where the trajectory starts changing or doesn't.